Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share some thoughts from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 10. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. The scoffer is one who mocks others, who belittles others, who criticises others. And the proposition that is being put is that we should dissociate ourselves, cast out the scoffer. In churches and in other organisations, there's often strife, there's recrimination, there's contention and argument, and it's usually focused on particular individuals who are busy finding fault with others, who are demanding their way, and they're belittling others. They can sound very righteous in their position, but they are putting down others. And by upsetting everybody, changing the focus from what we want to be doing to these issues in dispute. When you criticise somebody else, then you cause a division, because someone will rise to their defence. We're not talking about criticism that just seeks to raise an issue so that it can be properly debated and dealt with, but which goes beyond the issue to the person. So we have scoffing, we have reproach, we have contention, we have strife. And there really isn't a solution other than the person who is causing the problem, or the people causing the problem, being cast out. Or alternatively, you leaving. Amos says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? We can agree to walk together, but at some point there are circumstances where it's better to walk apart. Within the church, we find that provision is made in the New Testament to expel people from the fellowship when they persistently fail to walk in love, or alternatively, to withdraw yourself. When Isaac was born, Abraham already had a son, Ishmael, maybe 13 years older than Isaac. When Isaac was weaned, Sarah looked out and saw Ishmael mocking Isaac. The implication is that it's not just a matter of teasing which is done in love, but it was rather scoffing and mocking, because Ishmael was the firstborn, but Isaac was the one who was born according to the promise. Ishmael had had all of Abraham's attention all his life, but now he had to share that with his brother. So Sarah says to Abraham, cast out Ishmael. This displeased Abraham very much, but the Lord told him that's what he had to do. Even though he had invested 14 years, or maybe even 18 years, depending on what age Isaac now was, in training and teaching Ishmael, he now had to cast out Ishmael and put his whole attention now on Isaac. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Well, it solved that problem in the short term, and strife and reproach ceased. But we need to understand that God did not write off Ishmael. The Lord was with Ishmael, and he became great, and he walked with the Lord, but not in the context of Abraham's household. The Lord made Ishmael great, independently of Abraham, but because he was Abraham's son. And so when there is a division, even among believers in a church, over a contention, over an issue, then it's not necessarily that we should conclude that one group is right and one group is wrong. There was a great contention between Paul and Barnabas over John Mark, whether he should go with them when they went and visited the churches that they had established on their first missionary journey. And we could justify Paul John Mark had left them and not continued with the ministry, Barnabas wanted to take John Mark with them, giving him another opportunity. And Paul said, no way. He let us down last time. We're not taking him this time. The solution was that they divided and became two teams. Paul went with Silas to Turkey, to Galatia. Barnabas took John Mark and went to Cyprus. And so it was that Mark developed as a young believer and became very important, even writing the Gospel of Mark and working closely with Paul 5 years later. So he's left a huge legacy. And in that sense, Barnabas' interest in Mark is justified. But Mark was not the right person to work with Paul as he took the gospel into the Gentile world at that time. And the Lord provided Timothy as a young man to work with Paul. Timothy was ideally suited for the task of taking the gospel to the Gentiles because he was well trained with his Jewish heritage but had been raised in a Gentile world and so was well equipped for that as well. His father was a Greek, his mother was a Jew. Nevertheless, it's always stressful when you have contention, when you have strife, when you have reproach, people criticising, and there is a need to take action. So we find when Paul went to an area, he preached the gospel among the Jews, because Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. But when the opposition increased, he took the believers out of the Jewish fellowship and established a Christian fellowship, often just next door, so that argument and contention could be reduced. And so, when a problem does arise in a church or in any group setting, and it's clear that it's focused on an individual or a particular group, and that there is contention and strife and reproach, mocking, belittling, first of all, one attempts to bring reconciliation, but then to bring peace by removing the scoffer from the context. Cast out the scoffer. Identify the person who is behind, or the people who are behind, and cast them out. If you don't cast them out, then God can organise to move them out. As in everything, though, there is a balance. When we think of the ministry of the Lord Jesus, he knew when he first called his 12 disciples to be apostles that one of them would betray him, and he knew which one. But he didn't cast Judas out, because Judas kept his opposition secret, quiet. Yes, he was thieving from the group, but not in a way that was obvious to everybody. And so Jesus allowed him to continue with great patience, even though I'm sure Judas raised some issues through time. But the other disciples did not pick up on it. And so we are called also to be patient, long-suffering, desiring, much as it depends on us, to live at peace with all men. Nevertheless, as Solomon says, there is an occasion when we must take action by expelling those who are causing strife, or maybe removing ourselves. Jude tells us to contend earnestly for the faith, but he explains that we don't do this by belittling others or reproaching others. We address the issues rather than attacking the person. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease, and we can get on with the business.